Prime Minister Narendra Modi is not a new face in Washington, D.C. He's been here before, but this time the stakes are higher. There is a war in Europe, there is a Cold War in Asia, and for both, the US needs Indian support. So Joe Biden is looking ahead. He wants to write a new chapter in India-US relations. Will India play along? Let me take you back 7 years. It was another June in Washington, D.C. Prime Minister Modi was addressing the US Congress. Something he said then stood out. Listen to this.
Today, our relationship has overcome the hesitations of history.
Today, our relationship has overcome the hesitations of history, he said. It was a very important statement. India and the US were effectively on the opposing sides during the Cold War. That hangover continued even after 1991. Thus, the hesitation. But in 2016, India declared that those hesitations are over. So this visit is about the next step, about trust and commitment, which is why the Prime Minister is traveling all the way to Washington, which is why Biden has pulled out his biggest red carpet to take this relationship to the next stage. Ask any strategic expert, and this is what they'll tell you. India and the US are natural partners, two vibrant democracies, two diverse societies, and two ambitious polities. Yes, differences exist, but it remains one of the most consequential relationships of our times. Which brings us to the visit. Let's start with Prime Minister Modi's schedule. His first stop is not Washington, it's New York. On the 21st of June, he will be at the United Nations headquarters. It's International Yoga Day, so the Prime Minister will lead the celebrations. And the next day is crucial, the business day as we call it. First, there will be a ceremonial welcome at the White House right behind me, followed by the big bilateral talks. After meeting Biden, the Prime Minister will head to the US Congress. He will address American lawmakers for the second time. The first was in 2016. In the evening, he will return to the White House. President Biden and the First Lady will be hosting a state dinner. It's an event made for the cameras. On the 23rd of June, there is more business. The Prime Minister will have lunch with Vice President Kamala Harris and US Secretary of State Antony Blinken. He will also meet top corporate leaders and the Indian diaspora. So that is the schedule. But what is expected from these engagements? We can divide those in three broad parts. First is symbolism. A state visit and a dinner is a very big deal here. It's reserved for special guests. Biden has hosted just 2 state dinners so far as president. One for French President Macron and the second for the South Korean president. You know how you save your best perfume for the best occasion? This is the diplomatic equivalent. The second part is the agenda. Talks are expected to cover a lot of issues like defense, energy, trade, China, and the Indo-Pacific. The Ukraine war, of course, will also be discussed. It is no secret that Biden would love India to toughen its position. Also, the G20. India will be hosting the Leaders Summit in September this year, the G20 Leaders Summit. America's support will be key to getting a joint statement out. Remember, Russia and China will also be there. They're also members of the G20. So consensus will be tough. Both sides will also be looking for more political impetus. You see, there's a limit to what bureaucrats can achieve, or even diplomats. In the end, you need the leadership. You need the Prime Minister and the President to ease things out, to solve the big knots. Biden and Modi will look to do that, to inject more momentum into this relationship. Which brings us to the third part, the deliverables. Defense seems to be the top priority at this point. At least 2 deals are expected either to be announced or to be signed. One is, of course, to manufacture jet engines in India. We've been talking about that on the show. The second is for India to buy Predator drones from the US, around 30 drones for $3 billion. And both these deals are significant. The US has historically refused to transfer critical technology to India, and jet engine is one such critical technology. Reports say General Electric will sign a deal with Hindustan Aeronauticals Limited, HAL. We don't know the shape or the form of that deal, but Biden and Modi cannot stop at these. They should push on. Expanding defense manufacturing is good for both sides. The US can diversify its supply chains, and India, of course, gets more investments and jobs, not to mention a new source of weapons other than Russia. Like I said, the hesitancy is over. It's all about building trust and commitment. And defense is a good indicator of that. In 2008, India barely had any defense trade with the Americans. Now it's more than $20 billion. The overall trade, $190 billion, which makes the United States of America India's largest trading partner. So there's a lot in common, a lot going for both sides. There's a lot of potential. But as always, there are challenges as well.